Hello, and I'm delighted to say I'm joined here by Ballygunner goalkeeper Stephen O'Keefe ahead of the hashtag toughest showdown of the year, which sees Ballygunner face off against Ballyhale Shamrocks of Kilkenny in the AIB GAA Hurling All-Ireland Senior Club Championship final Saturday, February 12th, 3 p.m. It'll be live on TG Cahir and tickets are available at gaa.ie/tickets. This year's AIB Club Championships celebrate hashtag the toughest players in Gaelic Games, those who, despite adversity, don't quit, who persevere no matter how tough it gets, because tough can't quit. Stephen, delighted to have you on the show. I suppose the first thing to ask you about Ballygunner's run this year, obviously you went through Waterford, had a very tough semi-final, you performed very well in the county final, then you had a massive gap and you got into the Munster Championship. That was tough. Then you had Schlockneil. What's it been like this year, the run to finally get here to Croke Park?
Yeah, it's been a hell of a journey. I suppose luckily we've been in a position, I suppose, over the last few years to kind of go on similar journeys that haven't gone as far as they have this time. But I suppose, we're in the All-Ireland final now, and we're looking to go and win that as well, hopefully. I suppose, like you said, it was a long layoff after winning the county to go play in Ballyhale, and there was, I suppose, if there was any lingering doubts, I suppose, about the break or about having to go, up to Ennis. I think we were on a bus at 6:30 in the morning to go play that, so it was, it was a tough day. But I think, we got off to a good start on the day, and kind of it settled any nerves that were there, and I suppose we kind of drove on from there.
Yeah, like you've been a top team for a long, long time. I mean, I remember back in 2015 playing you in a challenge match down in Carlow when the lights went off. Like, you've been on this run for a long time trying to get here. What do you think it is about you this year that's kind of changed that allow you to kick on to that next level?
I suppose it might be, to be honest, it might be the younger lads that are actually in the team now. I know there's a cohort of about 5 or 6 of us, like myself, the likes of Barry Coughlin, the two Mannies, and and Shane, that have been there, for, let's say, the run of the last 7 or 8 years. But there's also, I think, it'll be four starters from the under-20 team this year as well. So there's a lot of new faces in the team that are setting a new standard and breathing new life into the whole thing as well. So it hasn't been a case of the same 17, 18 players on the road for 8 years now, and we're coming to the end of a journey. I think this team is a new team, compared to the one that won, let's say, the Munster in 2018. So I think, viewing this game as, as a culmination of what's happened the last 8 years, maybe isn't the right way to look at it. It's probably more accurate to say it's a point in time for the club and for the team as a whole, because there are young players on the team now that this has been their first year, and maybe this is a standard they're hoping to set for themselves, as opposed to people around my age that have been on the road for the last 8 years trying to make that breakthrough. So I suppose, it'll mean different things to people individually, I suppose, to sum it up.
I suppose it was February 2019 when you last met Ballygunner, or Ballyhale, I should say, in an All-Ireland semi-final. That was on in Thurles, and I think, if I remember correctly, you were in a decent spot after maybe 3/4 of an hour, but things sort of turned. They got that goal, eventually won 115 to 13 points. What are your memories of that game?
Yeah, I remember the game. I was up in Thurles. Obviously, it was a poor enough day for hurling. I remember the goals even were they were boggy. The boot was nearly coming off you on when he stepped in the sludge on the ground. I've never seen Thurles like that before. But yeah, it was a very tough game. It was very 50-50 up till about maybe 15-ish minutes to go. I think we had a goal chance, didn't get it in. They had a goal chance, they took it. And I suppose when, under the conditions, it was a very low scoring game. Points were very hard to come by when you could open up a gap of 4 or 5. Very hard to close. I think we had to go chasing a goal, probably sooner than we would have liked to have, just because of the conditions wouldn't allow us to pick off points, to get us back into the game. And unfortunately, it's a very hard thing to do against a team like Ballyhale, or who are a bit too, long in the tooth, I suppose, to allow that to happen. I think they filtered back a small bit and were able to pick off 1 or 2 points on the break, and ended up being a 5 or 6 point game by the end of it. But yeah, my memory of it is that it was, very, very close. And 1 or 2 turning points then just it didn't go our way, I suppose, with 10 or so to go, and I suppose the rest is history.
Yeah. Would you buy into this notion that Ballygunner are a team that are very suited to Croke Park? Like, look at the performance you gave at Páirc Uí Chaoimh, wouldn't be that dissimilar sort of a surface, and like, you just seem well suited to that. Would you buy into that sort of notion?
I suppose I would. I think we have a lot of good hurlers. We have a lot of pace in our team. Naturally, a good pitch like Croke Park suits that. I think it's obviously, I think it's a compliment. To say that Croke Park or Parky Queeve suits your team. I think that's basically just saying that you're a good hurling team, and fair play to you. So I would buy into that, but I think as well what's been very encouraging, I suppose, is that we've been able to dig out results on pitches that, let's say, aren't as glamorous or aren't as wide open and firm. So to have both those types of performances in the locker at this stage, like I suppose the Munster final shows maybe how good we can be, and maybe that's the standard we need to be setting ourselves, every time we go out. But also then the games like against Lockmore and Slotneil, where you just kind of had to really batten down the hatches and dig it out. It's good to know that that's in the locker as well.
Yeah, so the way there was obviously a bit of the fallout after the Lockmore game, and the talk of a small bit of play acting and all that. But what I saw was a team that, by hook or by crook, was going to get there this year, and like all that kind of stuff, that would all melt away eventually. Did that sort of stuff bother you afterwards?
Not personally, no. I suppose I'm lucky enough. I missed a whole lot of it because I personally actually deleted social media well in advance. I think it was a few months ago, just a personal decision. I just found I was spending a lot of time just on Twitter scrolling, looking at nothing, only what seemed to be just negativity about everything. I think it was during COVID, I was kind of, you'd be wasting a lot of time on the phone or whatever, and it just seems to be constant negativity coming at you. So I just said, what, I'm really better off without it. So I would have missed a lot of it, but I did hear the backlash was pretty rough at times. But we would have watched the game back like we would at every game, and there was nothing to me that sticks out as being too egregious from our side. And obviously, I'm biased maybe saying that. So what we would have done was just kept the circle small, and drove on. I suppose anyone's opinion that we needed to know was in the circle, and I suppose likewise with the internet can be a dangerous thing as well. So I think we just kind of kept the circle small, like I said, and drove on from there really.
Yeah, and of course this is another conversation that happens around you and you can't do anything about it. But I remember a few years ago when we were getting to an All-Ireland final, from months out, people were talking about Coola against Napier, that this would be the big final. I suppose, like, you've been hearing this probably for a few months, even before you had the Munster Championship finish, before you had the All-Ireland semi-final, Ballygunner versus Ballyhale. Is that a conversation you've been hearing for months already?
Yeah, it is. It's something, it's, like I said, as much as you're off, the likes of social media and the internet and that kind of stuff, and keeping all your, I suppose, analysis and build up in-house, general conversations in the street, general conversations you'd have in work, it would always pop up. People said, wouldn't it be great to see a Ballygunner Ballyhale final? And I said, well, it would be for us in Ballyhale, like, obviously, because we get to get there, but, we get to be there in that situation. But things, and I know it's worked out like that on this occasion, but in general, when you get into Munster and All-Ireland series, every team you play, even if you're perceived to be better than that team or worse than that team, everyone just seems to be capable of beating each other on a given day. I think you've seen that even this year, and even over the last few years. Nobody is there's rarely a sure thing, I suppose, when it comes to provincial and All-Ireland championships, and I suppose that's what makes the competition so exciting as well for the people watching.
No doubt. And club has been driven up to the next level in terms of preparation and analysis. Like, obviously, because you played county for the guts of 10 years and now you're here, and Shawnee O'Donnell, who's a statsman for Limerick, is with you as well. Can you just talk about the level of depth that a guy like that, who's at the top of his game, would be bringing to a team?
Yeah, I suppose it's great to have him. He's been with us now for years now. At this stage, he's one of our own now. At this point, but I suppose it's hugely helpful to go through, to look at a video of a game you've played or a game you're about to play coming up against an opponent, and I suppose just to have it all in front of you, I suppose, laid out very, very clearly as Sean does is a huge help for us. So we're certainly very lucky to have him.
So it's a case of, like, he's taking a huge amount of information and distilling it down into bite-sized chunks.
Yeah, that's in a nutshell. Yeah, just make it very accessible, I suppose, for players to watch, I suppose. Yeah. So they're not looking at an hour-long footage and trying to pick out themselves patterns of play or whatever the case is. So it's all in front of you fairly clearly. So like I said, we are lucky to have him. Yeah.
As a Ballygunner, Matt, what would it be? What do you think it would mean to people of Ballygunner if you could get over the line against Ballyhale?
Yeah, I think it would be massive. I think obviously it'd be the biggest day so far in the club's history. We've had a lot of success. From one side, we've been on a great run in Waterford, and we've managed to get 2 Munster titles, and we've been in Munster finals as well. I think another 3 times maybe in the last 8 years. So we've been going fairly far. But to kind of get over the line in the All-Ireland final stage would obviously be that total next step. I suppose success is, in a strange way, success is very relative to where you see yourself, in the grand scheme of things. So I suppose when you lose a Munster final, you almost come back and say the year was a failure, which is crazy when you think about it, considering how far you're after getting. So this is the level we want to be at, and this is the level we see ourselves at as well. So hopefully if we can get over the line now on Sunday or on Saturday, there'll be a new standard set and a new bar to try and reach every year, really.
Can I ask you about the evolution of goalkeepers? Because there was a time when it was just stand between the sticks and just blast the ball out as far as you can. That's very different these days, and obviously you did your part in terms of the Anthony Nash penalty. So you helped change that rule that time that you rushed it in 2014, I think it was, and got a lovely bruise for it. But then, of course, you started scoring points from outfield too, and I've seen you do this in club challenge matches when we played you as well another time. And obviously you did it against Tipperary. I'm pretty sure you did it against Tipperary in 2018 also. What do you think sort of sparked that evolution in the goalkeeper in terms of not just being a lad who's just standing on his own end line between the sticks?
Yeah, I think to be honest, the main thing that sparked it is actually an evolution from a full forward line point of view. Corner forwards are almost extinct at the moment in the modern game. Really, it's very rare that you see a full forward line now. One full forward and the two corner forwards out hugging the corner flag, which would have been the case all along. I think these days it's much more common to see 1 or 2 inside, but they're hugging the penalty box, really, which leaves both corners wide open. So I suppose it naturally comes from an evolution of that. Now there's a load of space over there to be exploited. So I suppose naturally you think, why not go into that space and offer yourself as an extra outlet? I certainly wouldn't have been doing it 10 or 11 years ago when corner forwards were there. I wouldn't be going next or near it, but now there's a lot of space after opening up for a goalkeeper to go out and exploit, I suppose. So I think that's actually where it's after coming from.
And is it something where you progressively got a little bit braver in terms of starting off, going out maybe to the 21, then the 45, and you're like, space continues to open up here? How did that happen for you?
Yeah, it was basically the same. Yeah, I think it started out from probably, maybe cheekily going out looking for a sideline back from a wing back or something, and then realising, when one of your backs was under pressure, rather than him hitting it blindly over the shoulder, Jesus, it would make much more sense if I just ran out 15 yards here into the corner and offered myself as an easy out ball. And, you can belt it the length of the pitch if you want, then, as opposed to a back clearing it under pressure over a shoulder, it could go anywhere. So it all just seemed to be a very natural progression, and everything you were doing was making sense. And there is going to be a day where it's going to go wrong. I don't think I've been massively caught with it yet, thank God. But there is going to be a day where it will go wrong, and I think that'll be the day then where you'll say, sure, it was always going to happen. But I mean, the net benefit that's already after coming out of it, I think, it's already paid dividends in 100-fold already. But yeah, like I said, I do think it's all an evolution of the corner forwards after coming in more centrally, and space just opening up, and I suppose with how much more tactically teams are looking at things, you're always looking for an extra edge, how you can exploit space anywhere in the pitch, or how you can offer out a helping hand. And I think even just naturally wanting to be involved in the game, I think as a goalkeeper we all fancy ourselves as outfield players a little bit, so we always want to get involved, and everyone wants to be on the ball as much as you can. So I suppose it's a culmination of all those things, really.
And I suppose other things I would have noticed then, I remember a couple of years ago in an All-Ireland quarter-final seeing Owen Murphy standing maybe 35 yards out from goal because he wanted to maybe make do a bit of a zonal puck out sort of a situation for Kilkenny there to stop players running into space. So I see that. I also see a situation now where, like, when I've been playing full back in the last couple of years, I've asked the goalkeeper to come out beside me so I can stand one side of the forward and he'll stand the other. And even if it's only visually to distract him, but just so you less feel like you're completely exposed back there. And then one other thing, Rory Beggan against Niall Morgan. I'm not sure if you've watched those Tyrone Monaghan games when the two lads are out midfield contesting puckouts or kickouts in those situations. So I'm asking you, what else are you noticing, and where is this going?
Yeah, I know. I see it in the football a lot. They'd be out nearly on the 65 looking at, cutting out a puck, cutting out a kick out. But I think the major difference between hurling and football there is that, if the hurling keeper was out 30, 40 yards, and if Owen Murphy is doing a fair play to him, I don't have the legs to get back quick enough on the goal, to be honest. Like a ball can travel 80, 90, 100 yards in the space of 2 seconds, so in hurling, as opposed to football where it has to be gradually worked up the pitch. So I think it's a dangerous game if you're going to be that far off the goal. Just to cut out a space, like, I don't know. In fairness to Owen Murphy, I know he plays outfield for the club, so he'd probably be more comfortable if the ball did end up, if the keeper, I suppose, at the other end called his bluff and did hit it down that side. So maybe he'd have the confidence or the whereabouts to go after and attack the ball. But I think in general, when you see that kind of stuff, it's kind of a bit of a bluff, just to kind of catch the keeper's eye and make hope he goes the other side. Because if you're caught under 3 men under a puck out and the goal is free, 50 yards behind you, that's not a position I want to be in. So, I might be a little bit adventurous, but not that much anyway.
Yeah, could you see yourself doing like maybe a 1-2 with a defender around somebody, as in just to get past the player? And like, where else can it go? Because, there are those situations where, this could go wrong. Like,
sorry, you just broke up there for a second. Would you say that again?
Apologies. I'm just wondering, like, do you think it'll get to a situation now where you as a keeper will come out and do sort of a 1-2 hand pass with a full back around the player and actually get involved in the play a little bit? I know you're saying there's limits to how brave you'll be, but it probably will continue to evolve a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely scope for giving a pass and even going for a return. Like I said, you are, if your team is 6-on-6 at the backs, you're essentially a seventh man. You're not going to really be marked. So if you want to give a pass, you absolutely could go again. I've tried it a few times in challenge games, and so it's been fine. And I would do it again in a championship game if the situation came up naturally. It's definitely not something I go forcing. But if you're on the run coming out with the ball and you see someone free, I think that is probably the next step in terms of giving a pass, and that man who gets the pass will then draw in an opposition player, which means you're then free to go look for a return. I could definitely see that happening over the next year or two. Like if you even look at, I think it was Cork's puck out tactics this year. They could be playing it around their full back line 3 or 4 times before they go find someone up the pitch. So I think keepers in general are becoming a lot more trusted as players on the ball overall, from an overall point of view. And I think that's probably where it's going, where you could see a keeper give a 1-2 and end up around the middle. But there would have to have been a discussion in place that someone's going to cover the goal in that situation. I don't think it's something you could just choose to do off your own back, and nobody knows you're going doing it, because you could be left fairly embarrassed pretty quickly, I think.
Yeah, you're on the ball with that one. I would have be thinking and looking up a price for you to score at Croke Park on Saturday, but sure, I won't put any pressure on you over it. Can I just ask you a final question about Waterford? And look, whether you miss it, like look back on 2020, how close you got overall. I mean, especially in the Munster final, and even Liam Cahill staying on there. If you're to more talk as a spectator, because obviously he could have gone to Tipperary and instead he's staying with Waterford, which is a huge vote of confidence for the Daisha lads.
Yeah, huge. I mean, to I suppose have the option to go to Tipperary and I suppose then to stay in with the group in Waterford, I think speaks volumes of I suppose how what he thinks of the players first and foremost, but also I suppose the loyalty that he shows in his own character. I think it's so I think it was a big moment for Waterford Ireland. I don't think there's many times, and I'd say up the tip, I suppose, as being part of one of the traditional big three, I'd say there was a bit of head scratching going on. That the Tipperary team was turned down for a Waterford team. That kind of I'd say that was definitely feeling up there. I know maybe you can speak a bit more to that, but it was certainly a big a big fillet for the lads, because there was a lot of good work after being done in the previous 2 years, and really 2 years is not a long time to put the full extent of your plans in place, be it through tactics or condition or the rest of it. Like, I mean, if you even look at even look at Limerick's run, I think the first year that John Kiley was in, I don't think they went, overly far in the first year, and it really took a year or two to kind of bed in, and look at the run that they've gone on since. So these things do all take time. It's not, it's very hard to come in and get success, I think, in your first year when you're just trying to put your ideas into a team and put your fitness regime in. These things all do take a year or two to kind of really bed in, I think.
Absolutely. Well, look, Stephen, taking up plenty of your time there. Appreciate you joining us there, and best of luck against with Ballygunner against Ballyhale at the weekend.
No problem. Thanks very much.
So that was Stephen O'Keefe there. Just a couple of comments in from about Stephen and also the game itself. The Battle of the Bally should be called. GA Marketing missing a trick there. Joe Butler, best of luck on Saturday, Stephen. But as a Kilkenny man, I'll be supporting Ballyhale. Should be a great game from two fine sides. Freddie Kelly, what a fantastic keeper. Will go down as one of the best inter-county goalies. And best of luck, Stephen, on Saturday. Bring home the cup to Waterford from all in Portlaw. Just a reminder, we will be doing a big preview on Thursday. Patreon.com/OurGame is the only place that you can watch it.